Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Willow Kane's trial moved forward after a huge taradiddle, but Drew Kane stood by his woman and believed in her innocence. At Crimson, Nina Reeves ripped into Michael Corinthos and Jacinda Bracken for stripping down in her office, but she eventually agreed not to go to HR as long as it didn't be again. After Michael left, Nina barked orders at Jacinda and advised her that Michael would ultimately throw her down. That's why Nina played herself up as someone Jacinda should calculate on rather if she really wanted a future beyond being in companion. At the Quartermain manse, Willow prayed Harrison Chase to let her see the kiddies since she was induced the charges against her were being dropped. Chase was glad to hear about the rearmost positive case developments, but he didn't want Willow doing anything that would hurt her chances at the forthcoming visit Hale. Moments laterally, Brooklyn Quartermain popped up and pushed Willow to get out of there. After Brooklyn slammed Willow for the situation she'd been putting Chase in, Willow agreed to leave and got Chase's pledge that they'd stay tight-lipped about this man's visit. Still, Michael walked in on Chase and Brooklyn agitating the matter after Willow was gone. Although Michael was relieved Willow didn't actually see the children, it still showed a pattern of jest. Michael wanted Brooklyn and Chase to subscribe statements about what happened for the judge, but Chase claimed it wasn't passing. Brooklyn did her stylish to shut down the fight that erupted as she pushed for peace. At the police station, ADA Justine Turner watched the business cam footage that Nathan West and Dante Falconeri had set up, which showed Willow in her auto near Drew's place. Turner decided this was compelling substantiation and that Willow's trial would move forward. The charges against Curtis Ashford would be dropped, but Justine suggested they could always go after him again laterally. As for Nathan, he summoned Nina and filled her in on all the rearmost Willow deception drama. In lockup, Curtis claimed he'd take Drew down with him if he went down. Drew misdoubted Curtis would expose anything affiliated to the blackmail because he wanted to cover Portia Robinson, but Curtis played it like he didn't watch now that they were decoupling. Britt Westbourne kissed Jason Morgan, and Nina Reeves saw commodity she could unsee. And Willow Tate Kane's justification atrophied after new substantiation surfaced. Britt was frustrated to find Jason in her room. Britt Westbourne returned to her room above Bobby's and was frustrated to find Jason Morgan there, looking at her drug. He questioned how she was doing so well, considering that current Huntington's treatments aren't this effective. She informed him that she was on an experimental medicine. Unsatisfied, Jason claimed that effects didn't add up and wanted to know the verity. He was concerned that if the supplier of her phenomenon medicine stopped furnishing it, her symptoms would return. He theorized she was getting the drug in exchange for her work at the Five Poppies, which was still ongoing. Britt kissed Jason but told him, not a chance. He noted that he knew Henry Dalton was involved, and perhaps Jen Sidwell. Britt tried to change the subject but ultimately asked what he wanted. Jason said he wanted to test her drug so they could make their own and free her from whoever was controlling her, and they could also help others with Huntington's. Jason also said, "I've no way judged you, I've only tried to help." Also added, "I was there when you got your opinion, I set up you in Croatia. When you had that lemon on your ankle and prayed me to leave, I stayed. I've no way left you, and I wouldn't start now. So please let me help you." Moved by his honesty, Britt jumped into his arms and kissed him deeply, also pulled back and said, "Not a chance." Nina saw commodity she could unsee. Nina was shocked to discover Michael Corinthos and Jacinda Bracken about to have coitus in her office, so she stormed out to give them sequestration to dress. Once they were clothed, Nina brazened them angrily and hovered to report them to HR, claiming this was sexual importunity since Michael was their boss. However, Michael told her that he'd formerly informed HR about his relationship with Jacinda when she started at Sunup. Noticing a developer dress on the bottom, Nina reprimanded Jacinda. She also turned back to Michael to boast that since the police set up another suspect, Willow would be attending the visit Hale in January. Michael gave Nina a warning. Michael advised Nina against taking vengeance on Jacinda, and Nina agreed not to report them to HR as long as they promised not to have coitus in her office. After Michael left, Nina told Jacinda that if she gutted up her mess and returned all the dresses to their places, she'd overlook the incident. She also reminded Jacinda that she was in charge and that if she wanted to leave her history as an companion before and start again, she demanded to flash back that Eventually, she advised her that Michael would abandon her. Formerly he got what he wanted, suggesting that Nina was the only one she could really trust. Willow showed up at the Quartermaine mansion. When Willow arrived at the Quartermaines, Harrison Chase reminded her she wasn't allowed there. She said the charges against her were about to be dropped and contended to see her kitties. Chase was glad to hear the police had a new suspect but noted the judge's ruling wouldn't change until the coming visit. Hale. He advised that if anyone set up out she sneaked in, it could hurt her case, but Willow claimed. Before Chase could decide, Brooklyn Quartermaine entered and ordered Willow out, shocked that her hubby let her in. She scolded Willow for asking Chase to break a court order on top of what he's formerly risked for her. Willow left. Michael arrived. Willow apologized for the situation but asked them to keep the visit secret. Chase agreed, and Brooklyn was surprised when he assured her the visit Hale would go well. After Willow left, Brooklyn questioned how Chase could let Willow take advantage of him. Chase claimed he wouldn't let Willow see the kitties, but she argued he sounded doubtful when she walked by. Chase said he wanted to help his partner if he could. Brooklyn felt sorry for Willow but advised her hubby to step back. Chase conceded it was good she intruded, noting it would have been bad if Michael had seen Willow there. At that moment, Michael walked in. Michael wanted them to subscribe statements regarding Willow's visit. They informed him that they had transferred Willow down previous to her being suitable to see the children, which brought him a sense of relief. When he asked them to give statements for the judge concerning Willow's presence, Chase refused. Michael inquired why it was challenging for the operative to be veracious, to which Chase responded with wrathfulness. He stated that he'd no intention of getting involved in the relationship between a mama and her children. As the pressure between the two men escalated, Brooklyn stepped in and contended for calm. Nathan and Dante made a discovery after reviewing some recent security footage. Dante Falconeri requested to examine Willow's statement. ADA Justine Turner entered the interrogation room with him and Nathan West and was taken suddenly to discover that the new substantiation didn't point to Curtis Ashford. They presented her with the business camera videotape, which showed Willow in her vehicle on Drew Cain's road during the firing. Justine expressed that it wasn't conclusive enough to guarantee a conviction, but conceded it would help their case. Dante remarked that it also didn't exclude what they had against Curtis and inquired who she wanted to pursue. Christina brought takeout to Alexis's. Christina Corinthos Davis intruded Alexis Davis at home to bring takeout from Bobby's and ask about Willow's case. Alexis said the police might have a new suspect, which was good for Willow but not for them. She reminded Christina that their deal with Drew about Scout Cain depended on proving Willow's innocence, which can't be if she doesn't go to trial, so Drew might keep the restraining order. Christina misdoubted he would, but disliked that Drew was using this against them. They also considered how this might impact Willow's guardianship sweats. Justine called Alexis about the new information and Nathan told Nina Justine called Alexis to say they weren't dropping the case against Willow and had new substantiation to partake. Dante and Nathan gave the acting DA the clearances she requested, and she told them to drop the charges against Curtis. Nathan expostulated, but she comforted him they could readdress that case laterally. After Justine and Dante left, Nathan called Nina to come to the station. When she arrived, he sorely told her that Willow had prevaricated in her statement and new substantiation placed her near Drew's house, so they were dropping the charges against Curtis and pacing with executing her. Outdoors, Justine gave Dante the approved clearances to pierce further security footage and asked if he'd be okay attesting against his former family-in-law. Dante gave Curtis good news. Drew, not so important at the police station, Drew said he allowed. Curtis shot him, but he didn't want Curtis to take the blame. Curtis claimed he didn't try to kill Drew, but advised that if he went down, Drew would too. He told the Solon that if he went to trial, he'd swear about Drew blackmailing Portia Robinson and abusing his power against Stella Henry. Drew misdoubted Curtis would betray Portia, but Curtis said his marriage was over, so he didn't care. Drew suggested he could suddenly flash back what happened if Curtis went to trial, but also Dante intruded. Curtis, I've good news for you, he said. Not so important for you, Congressman. Isaiah visited Portia, but Trina interrupted. Isaiah Gannon visited Portia in the sanitarium and was happy to see she was okay. He invited her to rest at his cabin for many days. Trina Robinson intruded, and Portia said Dr. Gannon was agitating treatment options. He left, and Trina was relieved to hear nothing was wrong with her or the baby, asking, "When were you gone? Nah, tell me about that, Mama." Portia apologized for not participating the gestation news sooner, saying she wanted to stay until the baby was safe. When Trina learned her father knew about the gestation, she hoped it would change effects, but Portia said they had other problems. Curtis came to see Portia. Trina mentioned that Jordan Ashford showed up during her visit to Curtis in captivity, which didn't surprise Portia. Latterly, Curtis came to the sanitarium and asked Isaiah about Portia. Isaiah advised him that she demanded to avoid stress and directed him to her room. Trina bothered about her father being set up shamefaced of shooting Drew, but Portia told her not to stress about it yet. When Curtis entered, Trina joyfully ran to him. He verified with Portia that she and the baby were fine, also comforted her that he was okay and they were together with their son and the baby on the way. He left, and Trina was relieved to hear nothing was wrong with her or the baby, asking, "When were you gone? Nah, tell me about that, Mama." Portia apologized for not participating the gestation news sooner, saying she wanted to stay until the baby was safe. When Trina learned her father knew about the gestation, she hoped it would change effects, but Portia said they had other problems. Curtis came to see Portia. Trina mentioned that Jordan Ashford showed up during her visit to Curtis in captivity, which didn't surprise Portia. Latterly, Curtis came to the sanitarium and asked Isaiah about Portia. Isaiah advised him that she demanded to avoid stress. The atmosphere surrounding Willow Tate Kane's legal nightmare felt almost ceremonial in its weight, as though a grim baptism had begun, one not of water, but of truth, consequence, and judgment, while the trial lumbered forward under the shadow of a devastating lie that had already altered the trajectory of multiple lives, and yet through it all Drew Kane remained unwavering at Willow's side, his presence a steady, defiant testament to belief and loyalty as he insisted with near religious conviction that his wife was innocent, refusing to let doubt corrode his faith even as the walls closed in. And while that drama unfolded in the courtroom shadows, chaos erupted in far more unexpected places, including the hallowed halls of Crimson, where Nina Reeves walked into a sight she never wanted seared into her memory: Michael Corinthos and Jacinda Bracken half-dressed and tangled in scandal right inside her office, prompting Nina to explode with righteous fury as she barked orders, hurled accusations, and threatened HR repercussions with venomous precision, framing the situation as a gross abuse of power and sexual misconduct until Michael coolly countered that HR had already been informed of his relationship, which only fueled Nina's humiliation and rage, especially when she spotted a discarded designer dress on the floor like an insult wrapped in silk, leading her to lash out at Jacinda before pivoting back to Michael to smugly declare that Willow would soon be attending her visitation hearing thanks to a newly identified suspect, but Michael was quick to issue his own warning, making it crystal clear that retaliation against Jacinda would not be tolerated, forcing Nina to swallow her pride and agree to let the matter drop under one strict condition, that it never happen again in her office. Yet once Michael exited, Nina's tone darkened as she asserted dominance over Jacinda, demanding obedience, reminding her who held power, and delivering a chilling sermon about survival, ambition, and the brutal reality that Michael would discard her the moment she outlived her usefulness, positioning herself as the only ally Jacinda could trust if she wanted a future beyond her past, while across town Willow herself was desperately seeking grace and mercy as she arrived uninvited at the Quartermaine mansion, convinced the charges against her were crumbling and pleading with Harrison Chase to let her see her children just once, her voice trembling with hope and maternal desperation, though Chase, encouraged by the positive developments, still cautioned restraint, warning that violating court orders could sabotage everything ahead of the looming visitation hearing, a warning Willow brushed aside until Brooke Lynn Quartermaine stormed in and forcefully shut the door on Willow's wish, unleashing her frustration over the impossible position Chase had been placed in and demanding Willow leave immediately, which she ultimately did after securing a promise of secrecy, only for fate to twist the knife when Michael arrived moments later and overheard Brooke Lynn and Chase discussing the visit, prompting a tense confrontation where Michael, relieved Willow hadn't seen the children, nonetheless saw a dangerous pattern emerging and demanded signed statements for the judge, a demand Chase flatly refused as tempers flared and Brooke Lynn scrambled to keep the peace, even as the law itself was tightening its grip elsewhere, particularly at the police Station where ADA Justine Turner reviewed traffic cam footage uncovered by Dante Falconeri and Nathan West showing Willow's car parked disturbingly close to Drew's home on the night of the shooting, evidence Turner deemed strong enough to push the trial forward despite admitting it wasn't an airtight conviction, leading to the decision to drop the charges against Curtis Ashford for now, though with the ominous caveat that they could always be revived later, a move that sparked outrage from Nathan, but carried devastating implications when he later summoned Nina to the station and delivered the crushing truth that Willow's alibi had unraveled and her lies were now undeniable, while Curtis himself sat in lockup vowing that if he went down, Drew would fall with him, threatening to expose blackmail, abuse of power, and every dark secret Drew had buried in the name of protecting Portia Robinson, declaring he had nothing left to lose now that his marriage was effectively dead, a threat Drew doubted Curtis would ever follow through on until Dante arrived with the chilling announcement that Curtis was free while Drew's problems were only beginning, and amid all this moral reckoning and legal warfare, another emotional baptism unfolded above Bobby's, where Britt Westbourne returned to her room only to find Jason Morgan studying her medication with quiet suspicion, questioning the miraculous improvement in her Huntington's symptoms and refusing to accept her vague explanations about experimental treatment, voicing fears that her health and life were being controlled by shadowy benefactors tied to her continued work at the Five Poppies, invoking names like Henry Dalton and Jen Sidwell until Britt demanded to know what he really wanted, and Jason answered not with demands but with a heartfelt plea, reminding her of every moment he had stood by her, from her diagnosis to Croatia to the bomb strapped to her ankle, vowing he had never left and never would, offering to test her medication so she could be free and so others might be saved, words so raw and sincere they shattered Britt's defenses and drove her into his arms for a desperate, passionate kiss she abruptly ended with a whispered refusal that only deepened the tragedy of their bond, a moment Nina would soon witness unintentionally when she later stumbled upon Michael and Jacinda's near intimacy, a sight that burned itself into her soul and fueled her growing obsession with control, truth, and vengeance. While elsewhere Christina Corinthos Davis delivered takeout to Alexis Davis and unearthed another layer of consequence as Alexis explained that Willow going to trial was a necessary evil if they hoped to dismantle Drew's leverage over Scout, a realization that left Christina unsettled and resentful, particularly when Justine Turner soon confirmed the prosecution was moving full steam ahead, a decision that reverberated through the hospital as Portia Robinson navigated her own fragile peace. Reassured by Isaiah Gannon that she and her unborn child were safe even as Trina struggled with the emotional fallout of secrets kept and marriages unraveling, and when Curtis finally arrived to see Portia, freshly cleared but far from absolved, he wrapped his family in reassurance while silently carrying the weight of threats yet to be unleashed, proof that no one in Port Charles emerged untouched, because this was not merely a trial or an investigation, but a reckoning, a baptism by fire where encouraging words battled angry threats, where loyalty was tested, truth weaponized, and every lie dragged screaming into the light, leaving everyone to face what they had done, what they feared, and what they might still lose when the final judgment came.